trees, he saw a row of lights. And he heard a strange buzzing sound, and he smelt a strange smell, and he heard voices talking, though what they were saying he couldn't tell. Now the trees all bent before it as the ship came into land. With Sir Pat McGee he stood his ground, with his camera in his hand. Though the pictures he took were blurry when he published them on his site, they very quickly went viral and he became famous overnight. And the people started coming. They came from near and far to see the spot where the aliens had landed in South Armagh. Now, the first to arrive was a young American. He was about 23 or 24. He said he was well used to aliens, for he'd been abducted 3 times before. He had a degree in alienology from a university online, and he said he wanted to examine the site to see what they had left behind. Well, he declared they were a hostile bunch from out beyond Alpha Centauri, and if they come back, we shouldn't mess with them, or the outcome could be gory. Well, we told them we welcomed strangers, though they came from near or far, though they'd be wise if they didn't mix it with the men from South Armagh. Now, the Bear McKenna, he saw the opportunity. The pound signs flashed before his eyes as I come home from work one evening, there to my surprise. There was a burger van at the foot of the mountain, selling all sorts of grub, and there behind the counter was the bear and his son cub. Now they were selling alien burgers, fish with space chips. He'd painted the van with moons and stars and a couple of rocket ships. And the people started coming. They came from near and far to eat an alien burger of South Armagh. Soon a stall went up beside them. An old fella from Mayo said he was new to the alien trade, but it was the way to go. For he used to have a stall at the missions, like his father did before, but sure no one went to the missions now or bought his stuff anymore. And the apparitions game was finished, he said. He had to liquidate his stock, for he was barely clearing what he was paying for the stall he had in Knock. Now he was selling plastic spacemen at a tenner a head. The prices were starting. But when you took off their helmets, so they all looked like St. Martin. Now, Paranoid Pat was in his element. He was conducting all the tours. He was up and down the mountain now, followed by groups of gormless whores. And he'd show them to the lantern site, and he'd show them marks on the ground, and he'd tell them about the smelly smelt, and he'd replicate the sound. He'd let them film him telling his story. He always swore it was the truth. And then he'd charge them 20 quid a head and went on to the next group. Now the traffic was impassable. It really was a curse. And then they did an item on the evening news, and sure, things got 10 times worse. Soon, fields were turned to car parks, but sure worse was on the way. P.T. Morgan opened a petrol station and then a cafe. And Nicky Kelly moved the license, and then he moved the pub, and the alien bar soon became renowned for good grub. Well, it said on TripAdvisor it had an otherworldly ambience. You could get your dinner there for a tenner, though you had to book well in advance. For the people were coming in thousands now. They came from near and far to eat an alien burger in the hills of South Armagh. Now, Oh, quick pause.
No, not finished.
Soon you had to meet in a car park and get a shuttle bus to the Alien Visitor Centre run by the National Trust, where students in bright t-shirts would order you around, that give you a welcome pack and charge you £18. Well, McDonald's bought the Bears Burger van, and then one fine day, Apple Green bought the petrol station and Costa the cafe. And Wetherspoons bought the Alien Bar with an offer Nicky couldn't turn down. And the National Trust bought the Mayo Man stuff for £11,000. But sure, our neighbours were getting jealous in County Louth and County Down, and some people in the Cooley Mountains said they heard a strange sound, and others swore they saw lights in the sky high above the Spelga Dam, and early the next morning didn't they find a dead lamb. And that was all the proof that was needed, said the County Down version of Pat McGee. He was appearing on the evening news, telling his story with great glee. Well, he said it was early days, but from the evidence so far, he said this was a better class of alien than you get in South Armagh. And it seems he had a story too, or it seems he had a website too, for the story quickly spread and that people stopped coming to South Armagh and went to Spelga Dam instead. Well, car parks are all empty now. The visitor centre is long gone. The petrol station and the cafe were sold for a song. Well, the Alien Bar is still open, but if you stop in for a beer, you'll very quickly notice the lack of atmosphere. So a lot of people lost a lot of money in the story that's so bizarre. But if you've been paying close attention, you'll know that not one of them was from South Armagh. Sinead.